I'm a sophomore here at Davidson. First off, I'd like to thank Kayla for being just an awesome leader in this group. She really put, okay, yeah. People usually have problems hearing me. But Kayla, she's just been great, and I'd like to thank everyone else who was behind this. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself and my journey through faith and why I think pluralism is important based on my experiences. I was born in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. Well, before that, this is a comfortable place, and I want to feel very comfortable. So, I have a joke here that I've prepared for you. And the joke may or may not be funny, but you all are going to laugh anyway, so that I can feel comfortable. Alright, so in Sunday school, this kid named Johnny, he was taught that God created everything, and he also created human beings. Johnny seemed particularly interested in the fact that God created Eve out of one of Adam's ribs. One day, later that week, Johnny's mother saw Johnny laying down on his side as if he was sick, and she asked him, "What is the matter with you, Johnny?" And he says, "Laying down by my side is in pain. I think I'm about to have a wife." Yeah, that was funny. Alright. So moving on. I was born in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. And originally I am from Somalia, from a small coastal town called Barawa. This is where my family is originally from. And Barawa is a small town with about 10,000 people, and it's known to be kind of like the Sufi center within Somalia. One of the most influential Sufi figures in East Africa is called Elyas al-Barawi, which means Elyas from Barawa. So my grandparents were pretty absorbent of the Sufi culture there, and later in my life, when I go back to Egypt to spend time with my grandparents, they become really influential in shaping who I am. So, growing up as a Muslim in the U.S., I came to the U.S. when I was about 8 or 9 years old. Here I came with my mother alone. My father was on the other side of the Atlantic. And when I was younger, my mother would always tell us, okay, she would ask us, have you prayed your 5 daily prayers? She would make us fast. And so there was always this culture at home where we practice rituals, even though I haven't really internalized the meanings of these rituals. And also there was another culture at school, there was another culture outside of home, so I had to balance between the two. I never really actually got into caring for the practice. Sometimes I would just eat and pretend like I was fasting as a kid. I think a lot of kids did that. And not until after my sophomore year in high school did I actually hit like a wall and come to kind of realize and have time to be isolated a little bit and think about who I am and what my faith means to me. At that point, I think I was at the lowest point, thinking back of my entire life. I was just it was something that was going on that I was personally experiencing that was just, I felt that there was no way out of it and no one knows about this except for God. And also at the same time, my family was going through a lot of problems. So my mother decided, kids are growing older now and we're having a problem maintaining our tradition at the same time being here in the U.S. and my mother was here alone. So she decided that, we were going to move back to Egypt and spend time with the grandparents. And so there I had time to I was isolated, there was a language barrier, I didn't have any friends. My best friends were my grandparents, the imams, and the poor people. Those were my best friends in Egypt because there was just a barrier between me and my peers. So within this isolation that I was experiencing in Egypt, I had time to kind of reflect about what faith means to me. What does it mean to be a Muslim? What does that mean to me? And eventually, I've gotten really close with the people there, and I've gotten really conscious about my actions, of what my purpose in life is, and what I wanted to achieve, and why I wanted to do it. So, with this consciousness, I spent a year in Egypt. I came back to the U.S. When I got back, I found myself to be even further isolated because of this consciousness that I had. I no longer had my friends, the imams, my grandparents, the poor people I befriended, so I was just kind of alone again. So eventually, I had to kind of let away with some of the rituals that I internalized and some of the principles that I had in order to balance and be able to be within the group. as time moved on, that kind of ebbed away as usual. So I'm in an ever-going spiritual journey. So that's where I stand today, ever-changing and ever trying to find myself. Now, what does my moment of experiencing pluralism? This happened when we went on an interfaith trip with the group here. We went to Atlanta. We visited a few different places of worship. We went to Ebenezer Baptist Church service. We went to Bat Mitzvah, Tibetan monastery, a mosque. We went to several different places of worship. I experienced, the crux of my trip was when we were at the Hindu temple, and the tour guide said something that really just stuck with me. She said, a lot of people have the misperception that Hinduism is a polytheistic religion, whereas it's really actually a monotheistic religion. All the different gods, the representations there are, they're all but attributes reflecting the one ultimate reality. And at that moment, I just kind of shivered. I was like, I thought, well, this is just, okay, so I went to the different places of worship, and I hear the same God being invoked, everyone praying for peace, mercy, forgiveness, the same ideals that overlap all different religions. And then I became to realize that maybe the different religious traditions, different names that we have for God are but, they're just different words reflecting the same thing. So, in essence, I felt that I was connected with everyone from all different faiths and traditions. Now, what is pluralism then, to me? To me, I feel that pluralism is that to be able to see everyone, whether it's your Jewish friend, your Muslim friend, your Christian friend, or anyone else from any different tradition of faith, to see them as equal to you, to not feel that you are better, you're more right than anyone else. And it's kind of reminded me of the story of Satan. Satan was the most righteous servant of God, and according to the Islamic teachings, he was the most righteous of all servants. And he was asked to bow down to Adam, and he refused. He said, "Why should I bow down to Adam? He's of lesser than me. I'm better than him." So it's the arrogance that I think is not it's what's not pluralism. I think pluralism is to humble yourself and to accept everyone. And I think that's a really hard thing to do personally. I don't think that it's easy to be humble and to just completely accept everyone, just to feel that you are no better than anyone else. But it's always a struggle. So I think that pluralism is essentially not, as Kayla said, it's not just diversity, but it's people coming together, accepting one another, but on a further step also acting with one another, coming closer together through action. And lastly, I'm going to share the last point of why pluralism is important to me based on the experience that I've had in the past. Like I said, I'm comfortable here to speak about my experiences tonight. I'm just going to share it with you, hoping that it's an invaluable experience to me, and I hope that it can be of value to all you all. In high school, when I was a senior in high school, I commuted about an hour from home to school every morning, and I was a hard-working high school student because I slacked off all the years before that, so I had to work hard. And so one night, I had to pull one of these almost close to an all-nighter to finish my work, and the next morning I had to go to school to turn in this paper, so I had to commute an hour. In the middle of the way, I felt so tired that I felt that it's just be a safer thing to just pull over somewhere and just nap for a little bit in my car. I love naps. And so I decided the safest place, probably, if we've been to this the mosque in Atlanta, some of you guys, the Central Mosque, there is a parking deck, and there's the upper and the underground parking deck. And I thought that the best place would be the safest place. Go there, park my car. No one's going to bother me at about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm just going to sleep there for a little bit. And as I was there in my car sleeping, there comes another car, a black SUV, comes right behind me and blocks me there. And this guy's blowing the horn. He's angry guy. He says, he's yelling, he's cursing, he's saying that you and all the Muslims are terrorists. The reason why we are fighting these wars in Afghanistan and Iraq is because of you all. He's just blaming and angry and cursing. And he said the reason why there's suicide bombers and people can't live in Israel is because of you Muslims. And so that was literally one of the most fearful experiences that I've ever had. I had nothing to say to him. All I told him was, hey, I'm sorry. I really can't control everything that goes on. But if there's anything that I can do, I'm only a high school student, just let me know and I'll do it for you. and keeps being angry, yelling. He says one thing that still sticks to me. He said, "Why don't you all speak up against it?" Right? This is what he says. Eventually he leaves, and I'm just there in just fear and shaking. I didn't know what to do. And then I thought, now that I'm thinking back to this experience, I'm thinking, we had an en route last week. We discussed a Hindu dance, and one of the things that we discussed was that God comes in many different forms, right? And one of the forms that I sat down and looked at for a while and said, this is really interesting, was that God can sometimes come in angry form. And so I said, okay, maybe this guy was really angry, but he said something that's true, that maybe I need to implement, and that is speak up against it. And so that's what I took from this guy. And that experience still sticks with me, because I have a loving and caring mother, and she wears her hijab to everywhere that she goes to. And I never shared this experience with my mother, because I, in fear of her being in fear. And I think that pluralism is important because one of the reasons is just our freedom of religion here is, I think, is at stake if there is no pluralism. I mean, how can my mother be able to practice her religion and not be in fear of practicing her religion, and me and any other person? But beyond just religion, I think pluralism is not just about religious diversity or people of different faiths coming together to work together. I think it's more about sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, all. With that, I am going to say thank you for listening to me and thank you for coming here. And I think I took